All right, welcome to the No Offense Podcast with your hosts, Thomas Grice and
Rogelio Tepete. Good evening, everybody.
Hi, everybody. Let's just take a moment to bask and enjoy each other's presence here. This is a safe space. This is a safe place for you to be. You know, whether you're on your drive to work, you're at work, you're sitting back watching some anime porn. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You're welcome here at the No Offense Podcast, and your beliefs and your identity is respected here. Isn't that right, Aurelio?
Absolutely, man. And we would put a trigger warning on this, but I don't think there's going to be any triggers today. And you know what? We're here to respect your ideas and your belief systems, and we're not here to shake you to the core. We're just here to just say it as the best opinion, the most fair opinion we can come up with. So thanks for tuning in, guys.
Fair and balanced, just like Fox News.
Exactly. That's whenever you associate No Offense with Tom and Ro, just think about Fox News and kind of put them on parallels, you know. So
it's like
thanks,
Bill
everybody.
O'Reilly, Thomas
and Glenn
Grice.
Dick.
I would say that I'm probably the Bill O'Reilly of this operation, and Rogelio is more of the Sean Hannity. Is that right?
I'm more like Megyn Kelly, you know.
You are a lot better looking, so
yeah,
exactly. I'll give you Megyn Kelly.
Thank you.
So we've got a lot of things to talk about today, so we're gonna dive right in. We're gonna dive right in this conversation like a North Korean 15-year-old, right? And if you don't get that reference, go Google North Korean diving Olympics and be amazed. So got a disclaimer today. That's something I wanna get off my chest. I've realized recently, because I've been so focused on this show and reading about politics and stuff, that I have become that which I hated. I have become overly sensitive to outrage culture, and
explain what outrage culture is for the people who may not know.
So a lot of what we talk about in the show is outrage culture, which is a kind of, I don't want to say it's a new thing that's developed, because probably outrage culture has always existed, but basically it's this culture of finding things to be offended about, or finding things that are, how would you describe it? I'm kind of at a loss here.
So
things that you want to remove from discussion.
Mm-hmm. So like things that upset you or trigger you, or things that you believe will upset or trigger someone else, so therefore you make an issue out of it, and it becomes not about the particular thing anymore. It becomes more about how upset you are about the thing. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right. So in becoming so sensitive to outrage culture, I think that I have become what I've hated. I've become a little bit too triggered by it, and kind of like that sometimes I felt myself losing my sense of humor about it. And so today's disclaimer is just to realize that, when we're trying to make this, trying to continue having a free, open society with good discussions, and we're trying to reach across boundaries and have dialogue, remember not to get too triggered yourself.
Exactly. And like, just like today I was scrolling through the Facebook, and I happened upon this guy who always posts this polarizing post where everyone comments on it, and it was in regards to this frat guy who got kicked out of his frat for blackface, you know? So of course I had to jump in the mix, and I had to like just explain the historical context of blackface, you know, and like a lot of people were like saying their isms, like, oh, you're racist, blah, 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 and I was trying to explain to everybody, like, give the benefit of the doubt, and then just by giving the historical context of the blackface, a lot of people like jumped on me and was like, oh, let's just get offended by everything, or cuck. Some guy called me a cuck, which is my favorite.
Somebody called you a cuck?
Yeah, my favorite thing to be called.
Man.
And then they did like the tear face emojis, and were like, tear face, retard, tear face. And all I said to that was, LMAO. Y'all get so offended by people getting offended. And I kind of like hush mouth everybody, I feel. Or maybe they just didn't reply back. But I'm going to take it like a personal win, like a W, you know? So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I've been called a cuck yet.
Not yet?
Nobody's called me I've in jest been called a cuck by friends, maybe,
Uh huh.
but nobody like no stranger on the internet has accused me of cuckery. So that's good.
Yeah. I'm on a Sam Harris party boat group. Are you in the same group with me? I don't
Oh,
know.
I'm on the boat. I'm on that party
You're
boat.
on the party boat, and
Yeah,
the term "cuckservative" people have been using that shit, like a conservative who's a cuck as well. And I feel
yeah.
like if I had to identify with anything, that'd probably be me. You know, like okay, I'll take that. I'll take that role. You know, that's fine.
You'll take that L.
Yeah, exactly. So I like that.
So we've got some recent happenings, some things that have been going on lately that we're gonna go over today. So as you probably know, me and Ro are from Houston. Ro and I are from Houston, and Anthony Bourdain recently went to Houston on his show, Parts Unknown. Great show. Everything Anthony Bourdain does is really great. I think Parts Unknown is a little bit less, slightly less food focused maybe than like No Reservations or The Layover was, but still like pretty food focused. Um, but not in the same way as like some of the previous shows. Like you know, I remember I started watching Bizarre Foods and this show or No Reservations at the same time. Do you know
Hmm.
Bizarre Foods, Ro?
With Andrew Zimmern, yeah, the
Yeah,
little bald guy.
this beautiful bald headed man, and so I kind of associated No Reservations and Bizarre Foods together. But anyway, Anthony Bourdain is a little bit more journalistic, a little bit more like searching out the culture and not just food focused. But so he went to Houston, and this is kind of a big deal because obviously I'm from Houston, Rose from Houston. A lot of people on my social media were talking about it. It's really exciting because Houston is this city that a lot of people don't think of as being like a destination, being a place that you want to go, really. But Houston really is a just a wonderful place, and I've learned now that I've lived in two other cities at this point how lucky I am. Even though I love the other cities that I've lived in and that I'm living in right now, Seattle, Washington. Um, there's just so many beautiful things about Houston, and I found myself getting emotional while watching the show because it was just so beautiful, like the diversity that he was showcasing. For example, he went to um, a school, the most diverse school in Houston, and the principal of that school is, I believe, a Vietnamese man. But the students themselves, obviously, many were Hispanic, some from Africa, Asia, the Middle East, and he said that 80% of the students at that school, um, their first language was not English, and I thought that was amazing because you could see in the eyes of the students that they all were just so uh, excited to most of them being immigrants, excited to be in America, educate themselves. They had goals of being a doctor and even a fashion designer and an engineer and all of this stuff. And it was just it warmed my heart to see that. But more than that, there's another reason that I bring up the show, and that is so Facebook has this thing where you can comment on people that you're not friends with posts, and so sometimes I will like a post or something, and then like my your your like awkward conservative relative will like comment on it too. Do you know what I'm talking about,
Yeah,
Aurelio?
like so there's like I guess there's an algorithm on Facebook that kind of shows you like what they think they want you to see. So if they're
Right.
like, "Oh, he comments on Tom's status a lot. He must want to see that Tom liked this status," you know? And so it's going to show up on your feed. You know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, that happens to me often where I'll like see that someone liked a post of someone that's not my friend on Facebook, and then I'll just be like, "Oh, yo, like status."
Yeah,
You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? Like,
So that's exactly what happened. A friend of mine, actually, a friend of a friend that I happen to be friends with, she posted a link to an article about the No Reservation or the Parts Unknown episode about Houston, and I liked that. And I guess I'll just say female relative saw it, and she made a comment. So before I tell you what her comment was, I want to tell you what cultures were covered or mentioned in uh, the Parts Unknown episode about Houston. They covered uh, several cultures from the Indian subcontinent, kind of all in one part, but it was like Pakistani and Indian and touched on kind of Bengali and Nepali, like sort of Indian groceries and some Indian food. It's really cool. They covered Mexican, they covered Iraqi. It's like some Arab sort of students were in there. They covered Central America. They covered Vietnamese. They covered some barbecue. They covered some African. They covered some Houston rap, like slab culture. I'm kind of mixing in like some of the food cultures that they covered, as well as the actual like ethnicities that that Anthony talked to in the episode.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to make it clear that they covered a lot in this hour-long show or whatever. I don't even know if it's an hour. It might come down to like 15 minutes. But anyway, so they covered a lot. Houston's a really diverse city. And my relative commented on this post, and she said, "Not impressed. So much more to Houston than the cultures he chose to showcase." And I was just like, what is wrong with you?
So
Like,
my question to you would have to be like, I would need more context on that relative to understand like what exactly she meant by that. Do you see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
what's the
like,
context behind that comment? Like, what cultures
totally.
would she have like?
Totally. The thing
covered?
is that's the thing though, is that that comment, like, I want to assume the best in people. Like, I'm not saying that's my aunt. She is a Trump supporter. I'll just say it's my aunt. It doesn't matter. I have several aunts. She's a Trump supporter, and she I don't want to say that her comment was rooted in any type of bigotedness, any type of ism, but it because I'm the last person to do that type of thing. But just given the fact that they covered like 10 different cultures, I can't help but wonder what culture you wanted them to cover. I mean, I guess the one broad culture that they didn't cover was like European white culture, but to be honest, in my experience in Houston, that as a food culture, that's not a very dominant culture. Am I right?
I would agree. I think I can think of like one German place or maybe like a couple of Irish bars, things of that nature. But I think what Anthony Bourdain tries to do is tries to go to cities and discover like kind of like the unknown part of the city and really understand the whole social dynamic in that city. So, I guess
Like,
people.
would you go to these Irish German places? Like, would that be like the first place or like the cool place that you would take somebody? Probably not.
No, I don't think so. I think that it's cooler, or not cooler, but just more interesting to check out these cultures that ended up in Houston, Texas. And that's what Bourdain started the whole show on. It's this idea that we look at Texas, or not we, but the world looks at Texas and sees closed-mindedness, like kind of backwards, kind of set in their ways, conservative, and yet you see a place like Houston and it's not like that at all. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's so much culture everywhere that there's no like zone. It's like you're gonna have a Chinese zone, and right next to it is gonna be like an Indian grocery store. So I think that's what Bourdain was trying to accomplish with this show, is like let people know, you know what, Houston's Trill City, and they've got a mix, man. It's a mixed bag over there. So that's awesome. I love
That's
Houston.
exactly what he did. And so I'm not going to spend any more time talking about the show. Just go watch that episode. The Vietnam episode from this season was also very, very good. Great show. Totally worth watching. Shout out to my aunt. Not trying to pick on you. I'm sure that you meant well by your comment, but I just thought it was a little odd because he covered so many cultures in that episode. So moving right along, what's up with this Oregon standoff?
So recently, I don't know if you've heard about what happened in Oregon, where these group of guys, they're called, I guess they call themselves the Bundy family. It was like 9 guys, and they were upset about some sort of like eminent domain type of things that was going on with like the forestry in Oregon. And so what they did was they grabbed a bunch of assault rifles and a bunch of guns and went to this admittedly the federal building is not used, like they use it like once or twice a year or something like that. That's what I read. And they went and they occupied it, and they were there for 41 days, and eventually one of the guys did get shot. But recently they just got out of court and they were acquitted of every single conspiracy charge, blocking federal workers, like every single charge that they could have been charged with, they were fully acquitted. Yes, one of them did die, and that's fucked up. But the only comment that I have to make about this, and I want your opinion on it as well, is I feel like there's a serious lack of equity in the law, and I know that you and I, in particular, kind of like hate going into this territory, but there has to be an implicit bias here by the judge, right? Like this idea that these white people, because you know what it was that set like that kind of gave me this observation and kind of like led me to the articles that had like supported my claim, is that I was reading things on Facebook about people defending these guys' right to protest, right to assemble, and all I thought to myself was BLM originally was peaceful, and then they were like going to jail, and then the NADPL, like the North Dakota Access Pipeline, is peaceful. It starts off as peaceful. They were just, and it was totally different. Like even like a documentary filmmaker like Amy Goodman got arrested, and she just barely got off. So I just want you, I just want your opinion on what do you think about this? Like what is there equity in law or is there not? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, the first thing I would say is that on the surface it does look really, really bad, and I think that I can totally understand where people are coming from, and I'm inclined to agree that it seems inequitable. But I would point out that I'm not sure it's the judge's fault in this situation. I'm not a lawyer, don't know a lot about law or the legal process, but I think that it's actually the jury that is to blame, sort of, in this case, because they were responsible for convicting these people. And from what I understand, they were susceptible to the defense's case that this kind of fell under sort of a protest, so to speak. And, given the fact that the Bundys and all these people didn't actually shoot or harm anybody, I think that it was just framed as a protest by the defense, and the jury let them off. So I don't know enough about the law or what happened to know for sure if we can somehow place some blame on the jury, or if we can place it on the judge. I think it's the jury's fault, and maybe our system is set up to maybe have juries which don't convict guilty people often enough. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think I would have 2 points here. My first point would be it's either all or nothing. It's either these people broke the law and they should be jailed for protesting and doing all these things just the same way the is, or it should be the should be allowed to protest all they want peacefully, and but the perception of it is what interests me, is like the Bundys were seen as heroes, and like one of them was seen as a martyr, when the BLM, and I know it's not centralized, and I know some places are very radical with their BLM, but like for the most part the BLM is seen as maybe doing like an empty cause, or their cause isn't seen as the same with the same respectability as the Bundys. And I don't know how I feel about that yet, but
So I have
it
a
just
question
seemed like
for
an
you.
interesting.
I have a question for you. How
Yeah.
many BLM protesters have been sent to prison?
To prison, not a lot, not a lot. But how many have been like beat or arrested or things of that nature? From what I've seen and from what I've read, a lot. And maybe it's just the way they approach the protest, but in one particular case of something that's in recent history, is when they were protesting in Baton Rouge, they were on private property. Like the BLM protesters were all on private property. A house that the lady allowed them to protest on, and they were doing like a kind of like a die-in where like they would die, like they would like hands up, don't shoot, and they would like act like they died. And the riot police surrounded them and were pulling them off the property and arresting them. And that to me just doesn't, and it doesn't seem fair, and it doesn't seem equitable, and it just seems so sketchy to me, and it seems like unjust for certain protesters. And even like NADPL, like the North Dakota Access Pipeline, like if you watch the videos, these guys have a camp, and they're using, like, the police and the government is using the fact that they're on private property, like purchased property by that company, that they shouldn't be there. And so they're grabbing them, they're throwing like sound cannons at them, they're like really messing these people up
Okay, okay,
because of their
okay.
protest. You
So,
know.
so here's my thing. I don't know about the protests that you mentioned, the die-in. Were they so they were on private property and they still got uh, detained?
They were like getting pulled off. There's a video. I'm sure we could find it,
I
but
would love to see that if that's true. If that is the case, then obviously there is some inequitability there. I would say that the Black Lives Matter protests, I think, tend to be very different in nature than this. By the way, I don't agree at all with the Oregon. Well, I don't even know. I don't understand what they were doing. I thought it was about seizing that land so that they could be like sovereign citizens on that land.
no, it's like there's these two farmers that have land, right? They have
Mm-hmm.
property. They have let's say Farmer Joe and Farmer Steve. They have property in Oregon,
Mm-hmm.
a big amount of land.
Yep.
Well, Oregon State, the state of Oregon, was like, "Yo, Farmer Joe, Farmer Steve, we gotta eminent domain your ass and make that some of your land part of the national parks, you know, because like you got some dope stuff on there." And then the Bundys, who are friends with Farmer Joe and Farmer Steve, were like, you know what? State of Oregon, you can't do that. Yo, like, that's not cool. These are my homies. Farmer Joe and Farmer Steve were like, you know what, guys? It's all good. Like, don't even worry about it. Let them have our land. The Bundys were like, nah, fuck that. Like, the government can't come in and take that shit. So we're going to go take this federal building, you know?
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I guess I really don't know enough about that to know whether. Let's just ignore the cause and let's just say like it was illegal and how should they be treated. Um, I don't know that there's. Can you really compare that to like Black Lives Matter protests, which are often happening on like crowded city streets and urban
Yeah.
areas? I mean, I don't know. Like, I want to be outraged by it, and I want to believe first, like, I want to be outraged by it, but not only are the circumstances very
Different.
different,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it was if there was some implicit bias or racism, if we want to say that, then I
Mm-hmm.
think it was. It seems to be the jury's fault,
Mm-hmm.
or I guess you could say the prosecution didn't bring their case hard enough, and
Right.
maybe the prosecution was racist and wanted to get them all off. Like that doesn't make any
Yeah, that
sense.
doesn't make any sense either. Yeah, no, I mean, you're absolutely right. I just think that it's a good thing to observe and to think about, especially when someone's. I think that it could be an argument for the lack of equity in law towards POs, people of color. You know, it could be interpreted as such. And I'm not saying necessarily that I want to do that. I just think that it's a very interesting scenario, a very interesting case. Because if you were just, and this is the way I think about it, if you were to place those 8, 9 white guys with black guys,
Yeah,
or Islam guys, Muslim guys,
yeah,
or Mexican guys, or any type of
yep.
guys, do you think that it would go similarly? And that's a question I would have to
No, no,
pose
no,
to
no.
you.
I
You
think,
know what I'm
I
saying?
think, I think, I think it probably would not. Like, I think that, but I think it would be the jury that fucked up, and everybody right now thinks it's like the system. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
in some, I guess in some sense, maybe it is the system, the scary system. But um, I think it might be, the jury of your peers happen to be racist. Maybe that's even worse than it being the system. You know?
I don't want to go as far as to say that, but yeah, maybe there's things to look into, and I think whenever I tell, not you necessarily, or not even like some of my friends, but like other white people, things like this, they get like, yo, nah, dog, like, nah, racism is dead, you know what I'm saying, like,
Mm-hmm.
nah, that's not real anymore, you know what I'm saying,
Mm-hmm.
and it like it makes them feel like I'm personally attacking them, when in actuality, like, if you even have that thought process where like, am I racist or not, you're doing better than people who are just like, yo, you know what, it is the way it is, it doesn't matter. So I think
Mm-hmm.
it's good to occasionally confront yourself and be like, yo, how do I feel about these things, so just
Yeah.
an interesting little thing.
So, if anybody has a correction, by the way, any listeners to that situation, if I interpreted anything wrong or you think that maybe I'm misunderstanding the legal system, then please give us some input. Um, so, we did a little question and answer. I guess we asked a question and listeners gave us some answers. So, Ro, do you want to kick us off in our reader or listener input section
Of
this week?
course, of course, of course, of course. Give me 1 second. I had it
So
up.
this week, our question was, what do you find difficult to talk to other people about, like such as family around the dinner table at holidays, or just what is uncomfortable for you to bring up with people in general? Like what type of topics? And
And
we
I
got
think I think you meant like extended family as well, right? Like just people who are in your bloodline, not just like your immediate family that you like associate yourself with every day. You
yeah,
know what I'm saying?
I don't even. Oh, let me see what I said exactly. I said, what topics do you try to avoid talking about with family members and why?
Why?
We got a
Yeah.
lot of, we got like 9 answers. So shout out to everybody who replied.
So my boy Alan Spackman, he said race, and he said too many rabbit holes to go down and too many hard "you're wrong" type of statements in quotation for any conversation about to not ruin whatever gathering I'm at. And I like that though because it's very very true because as soon as you talk about race with someone who feels uncomfortable about talking about race, those people are gonna like close off their wall, you know, and like not want to talk about it. And it's very common because they don't want to talk about race because they don't want to be confronted about their own ideas about race, you know, because there is a lot of social repercussions to having a contrary idea. And I don't know if that's very good. What do you think
So,
about that?
I have a point on this. So, my boy Alan is white. I'm white. I wonder if more white people have this type of problem because being the historically oppressive class, I suppose white families are more likely to have politically incorrect views, and maybe it's more difficult to have conversations about race. You're Hispanic, you're Mexican.
Hmm.
Would you say that this is a topic that you find difficult to talk about with your family?
Um, that's an interesting question because Mexicans aren't particularly understood as the oppressive race. And so I guess the people in not my immediate family, but in like my cousins or my uncles, especially the ones who are in Mexico,
Mm-hmm.
they are openly racist and they're not embarrassed by it and they don't even give a shit. They're just like, yo, you know what? Like, yeah, I mean, I don't like. I have a cousin who's my age who's like, frankly says, oh, black people kind of weird me out, and I'm like, you know, and then she just says it and she doesn't. She's not unapologetic about it. She's nothing. She's like, yeah, I saw a black person for the first time when I went to Mexico, United States, when I was 18, and I like hid behind my uncle, my dad, you know, my
Oh,
uncle, and I was just like cracking up about it because like in Mexico they don't interact with black people as much, and so they're just
mhm.
unapologetic. They're like, yo, you know what? Like they just make me uncomfortable. And for white people, it's like, yo, you know, like we got to be careful about what we say, and who knows who we're gonna offend. And I think that's actually kind of a good thing, you know. Like I'm not saying that my cousin's the dopest for having this viewpoint. I'm just saying it's better to be politically
I
like.
think that's what you're saying. I think you're saying your cousin is the dopest for being afraid of black people.
No, I'm just saying. I'm saying that approaching it like a white person in quotations
Right,
is the best way to do it. You know, like.
right.
But
No, for sure. But I just know that I'm trying to think if I have any like super uncomfortable stories with some of my relatives, and I think that me being probably one of the most liberal people in my family, um, I don't think it's. I'm not like bringing up like racial topics. I already know that I'm not voting for the same. You know, a lot of my family's Trump are Trump supporters,
mhm.
um, so I'm not delving into that discussion with them.
Just like jump into the deep end and just get eaten alive by all your uncles and cousins.
Yeah, we got a
There's
lot
only
of
there's only so
Fox
much
News
arguing.
watchers.
Yeah, there's only so much arguing you can do with someone before you're like, okay, y'all win. All right, I'm done. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah,
another thing someone said was abortion, and yeah, like I don't even know how to broach that subject.
let's read. I'm gonna read it. So it
Okay.
was our boy Jack, and he said, "Abortion is for some. It hits too close to home. All it does is bring up painful memories and arguments. Never a fun combo." And so yeah, I could imagine this one being bad, particularly if you have a very religious family or if you have a maybe somebody who had an abortion or
Hmm.
you had an abortion but they're against it. But it doesn't seem to be as touchy as race on average, probably. But
Hmm.
I could see it being a pretty tough subject. Yeah.
For sure. Chris Lingenfelter said religion is hands down the conversation I try to avoid.
Hmm.
I guess the consensus is if you have a different opinion than your family and you know that you do, you try to avoid having that opinion. You know what I'm saying? Because I
Hmm.
don't know what religion Chris is, but based on things that I've talked to him about, I don't know. Is he atheist?
Yeah, Chris is not religious. Shout out to
Yeah.
Chris. Um, yeah, I mean, these are pretty typical topics so far. We've got race, we've got abortion, we've got religion. Like these are all things that I think people would not be saying on the first time that they meet somebody. They wouldn't be talking about them, and they probably wouldn't be talking about them at the Thanksgiving table, depending on what your family is like or how awkward you want your Thanksgiving to be. Uh, the next one is a little bit more humorous. It was our boy Ali. He said, marriage, because they think it's as easy as going to Walmart to get TP. Every conversation starts with, you engaged yet?
I think
Uh,
that's our age group too, man. Like
yeah.
24, 25. It's like people kind of want you to do things in a timeline, like graduate high school, get a significant other, graduate college, get married after college, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah. Especially, I don't want to assume things about Ali, but I'm pretty sure that I'm guessing that his family moved here a generation or two ago, and coming from maybe a traditional culture from the Middle East or something, um, to the modern American like hookup culture
Yeah,
is got to be difficult to explain to the parents.
exactly. And then Marco, he made a little joke, but then he said, I like what he said about like that's so true about your significant other, about like an opinion that you hold of them, and then like to try to like sometimes in an argument when you're with your significant other, they'll throw it back in your face, and you're like, yo, 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 don't say that. Only I can say that kind of thing, you know.
Okay,
And
so
and I don't know
read
what
what he
I've.
said because I don't. Maybe the audience isn't clear.
Okay, so he said, but on a serious note, talking about in-laws to your significant other is hard. And then you go, haha, wow, that's a good one that I haven't had to deal with yet. And he goes, it's hard to openly discuss as you are very emotionally invested in your own family. And the opinions that you have of your in-laws may be interpreted by your significant other as an opinion you hold of them. For example, I sometimes disapprove of things that Ro has done, and I openly criticize and discuss it with my wife. But if she decides to join in and do the same thing, I suddenly become overly protective big brother and get upset. I wonder what I've done. When I read this originally, I totally forgot. Like, I wonder what I've done that he's disapproved of. But that's fun.
That one time you entered that hot dog eating contest, he was just like,
Nah.
nah. And then his wife was like, yeah, man, fuck that. Why is he eating all those wieners? And he was like, wait, hold on. Ro can eat as many wieners as he wants.
That's exactly the conversation that happened. I'm sure it's probably more about like along the lines of something illegal I might have done or something. But
Oh shit! Did you smoke a weed?
I think I smoked a weed one time, man, and I'll never do it again. Biggest regret of my life. Never gonna smoke a weed ever again.
Yeah, I smoked a weed and became retarded. So I sorry.
Sorry,
Um,
mom.
Sorry. So our buddy Jonathan Matar said sex simply because my family consists of two females. I don't actually know Jonathan's family. So I don't know how personal we want to get here, but he did say two females. Like what is that? What does that mean?
Nah, it's he grew up with his mom and his sister.
Okay, so it's not like a
Yeah.
big extended. Okay,
No, no,
got
no.
you.
So
So yeah, I can see how that would be awkward.
yeah, just like tell your mom and your sister about your Tinder date and
You're just
shit.
like, hey mom, I'm fucking.
your boy, your boy smashing. Mario's.
So I wait, hold on. I don't come from a very traditional family. I was mostly raised by my grandmother, so obviously I'm not talking about sex with her. But it. So you had a mom and a dad in your house, right?
Yeah.
Was it? Do you talk about sex with your parents, or have you ever?
Growing up, we didn't. It was very, very taboo, super taboo. But now, you know what's fucked up? My sisters, my my sisters can't talk about sex to my parents. You know,
Yeah.
and I don't like go up to my mom and like, yo, I'm smashing, son. But back when I was single, I'd like show my dad things on my phone. You know what I'm saying? Or like I'll be like, yo, dad, I've been smashing. And give him like a undercover high five. He was like, you smashing, fool. And so it'd be like, you know? And so the
I'm
funniest way
sorry,
to think,
that's funny.
because like You don't know my dad, but my dad's like he's kind of straight edge, never drink or smoke, but he smashes, he likes to talk about it. So like he'll like kind of like poke me, like hell yeah, bro. Like, but I can't imagine him doing that to my sisters ever, because
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
That's
So
hilarious. So, a good one. All right, Mariel Champagne said, "Race, not with my immediate family, but with older members who grew up in a different time and kind of set in their ways. Anything progressive. I just seem like a naive hippie college student mentality, even if I think I make good points." So, Mariel is also a white person. She's a white girl, and I can see how bringing things up around your Texan Trump supporting family could be difficult.
yeah, and then Giovanni Jonason, he said that politics is super dope to talk about in public. He's got a weird family that likes to talk about that sort of stuff. My family does too, but we have a traitor in our midst who likes Trump, so like now it's kind of awkward talking to them about that. But and he says the hardest thing for Giovanni to talk about is personal romances. So yeah, I think that um I guess unless like you're romancing a bunch of different people, that would be awkward. But like a girlfriend, I don't know. Giovanni, you are in the minority, bro. Not gonna lie to you, Giovanni.
Maybe our boy Giovanni is of a sexual orientation that his family does not approve of.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the main awkward scenario that I can think of that. You know what? No, like some families are very conservative, and it's like they don't even want to talk about anything that could be remotely suggestive of sex. So
Yeah.
maybe his family is like that. Okay, so we're gonna move on here. I wanted to take this time. We have an election. Hey, I don't know if anybody's heard about it, but we're going to elect a new.
Election? Wait. What
Yeah,
the fuck are you talking about, dude?
it's for the president of the United States, and then a
Oh,
bunch
is
of
that this year?
congressional seats. Yeah, yeah.
Oh shit! I totally forgot. Okay. Anyways, what about it?
So there's some candidates running. There's Donald Trump.
Dude,
I don't know.
explain it like I'm 5. Like if you were
Okay.
explaining it to a 5-year-old, what would you tell him about the election?
I'd be like, well, there's a document named the Magna Carta that was signed 300 years ago. No, I would say that we have a rich buffoon essentially running, and a Scrooge McDuck running. No, that's the same person.
Same person.
The other would be like a like who's the evil lady in Snow White?
No, it's the lady from House of Cards, dog. Like, what's that lady's name?
Oh,
I don't even know
the
her
wife?
name. Oh no, you know who it is? It's Scrooge McDuck versus Cersei from Game of Thrones.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's an
Yeah.
apt comparison. So you've got your little goofy rich guy, and then your like evil mastermind lady who will blow up King's Landing. Except we're living in King's Landing, like all of America.
Mm-hmm.
No, in all seriousness, I think that Hillary Clinton is the better choice of those two. But I wanted to make my endorsement not for either of those in particular, but I just want everybody to go vote if you feel like you have an opinion. But no matter what I'm really endorsing is holding whoever gets elected accountable in 4 years whenever we hopefully have a better alternative choice.
Mm-hmm.
So I want you to vote. I want you to pay attention to the down ticket races in your area. I want you to start becoming more engaged with the political system. Vote for a third party if you're in a state where it probably doesn't matter, or vote for a third party anyway. I don't care. Just go out and vote and become more involved with this so that we're not in this
In the same
shitty
position.
situation in 4 years.
I agree. Your endorsement, I guess, applies to me. But I got an interesting thing that I've epitome that I've had this week. And whenever Trump
Epiphany.
started is it epiphany? Shit, dude. Damn, that's an
You
L
probably
for
didn't have
Roe.
an epitome.
That's an L for Roe this week.
We need
Okay.
We need a sound effect whenever Ro fucks up some English.
Dude, my brain has to translate shit on the fly. Okay, anyways. So
Wait. Does your brain go like? Is there like a little Spanish thought coming through your brain, and then it has to run through the English filter?
no, it's just like there's two languages in there, and they're kind of like bumping side to side. They're like race cars, and like
Yeah.
a veces like en español quieres. Oh, see, the Spanish just came out of me like an accident. So
Oh no. Okay.
that happens sometimes.
So
But anyways,
finish your thought.
before like a year ago, if you would have asked me how I feel about Donald Trump, I would be like, "Fuck Donald Trump, he sucks." Yeah. Maybe because it was because of this podcast, or maybe it was because like other things. Now I'm more like fair about it, and I'm like, you know what? I understand why people are voting for him, and now I'm like, I wouldn't mind if Donald Trump wins anymore. You know? Why? Let me tell you. Let me tell you why.
Tell me why, Rogelio.
I'm gonna fucking tell you why. It means that democracy is still alive in the United States. It's undeniable proof that the democratic system, although maybe broken because we voted for a stupid candidate, we're still stupid people would vote for a stupid candidate, and the democratic system in the United States is not totally broken. Right now, the way I see it is it's kind of broken, dog, because just because a name just because we can recognize the name Hillary Clinton, and the way our boy Irvin Casehearts was putting it today on our Slack channel, that it's weird the way the media portrayed Bernie Sanders, or you know what I'm saying? Like, it just seems too sketchy. And I used to like not believe in these conspiracy theories about Hillary Clinton, but because of the fact, like, email gate, it's being called now, and like Comey coming out and saying that he's gonna do another probe of the emails because of something he found in Anthony Weiner, or Donna Brazile being fired from CNN.
I don't think he found it in Anthony Weiner.
He found it in the Anthony Weiner.
I don't think he found it in Anthony Weiner's wiener. Like, I don't think he was probing that deep.
Anthony Weiner, yeah. But you know what I'm saying? Like, Donna Brazile getting fired from CNN, and like CNN.
Fuck Donna Brazile.
But you know what
I'm saying it right now.
But
anyway, I see what you're saying, and I just want to present this scenario because this is something that could happen. Donald Trump gets elected. He names some shitty fucking people to the Supreme Court. We're not going to get out of that. Like, that's going to happen if he gets elected. We're going to get some shitty people in the Supreme Court, probably. And then let's say that he doesn't take us to war because he said anti-interventionist things in the past. Let's say he makes us best buds with Russia. We get like some good relationships going there. Let's say he doesn't do the TPP, which, depending on your opinion, that could be a really good thing. Let's say he lowers taxes. I'm not all about that because I think that our budget is already imbalanced as it is, and I don't think he's presented that many things to cut. Yeah. But let's just say that he lowers taxes like some marginal amount, like not that much, so it's not that big of a deal. And then let's say he doesn't build a wall because he finds out, oh shit, like that's not going down. He just like ups the budget a little bit on our border security. And then let's say that he, I don't know, let's say he introduces legislation to have term limits for Congress people. That's badass. Like, what if he does that? He endorsed that. Like, what if what I'm trying to do here is paint a picture of a Trump presidency that like isn't that bad, and then we just vote him out of office in 4 years.
Yeah, and I've Ben Shapiro. He's a conservative talk show host, like a podcaster. He says that he thinks he doesn't like Trump. He hates Trump. He would rather Clinton win, but he says that he thinks that Trump is actually a liberal, and that like Ivanka Trump is best friends with Chelsea Clinton, and the only opinion Trump cares about is Ivanka's. So it turns out Trump gets into office, no one can buy him, he doesn't give a fuck, and he turns out he's actually a liberal this whole time, and he just knew how to win the election. And if that's the case, it's gonna suck for the deplorables, but I don't think they're gonna care what he does when he's in office as long as he wins. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah.
At this point,
I don't know. And I don't buy into so much that Trump is a bigot. Like, I don't think that he's a bigot. Like
he's just an idiot, you know.
I don't think that he has some ambition of wiping out minorities in this country or anything crazy like that. You know what I mean? That's just ridiculous. He's probably been surrounded by minorities his entire life in terms of living in New York or whatever. So, you know what I mean?
And when people make the argument like, "Oh, Trump's a blood rich man," I mean, so is Hillary Clinton. So right now, at this, I think our first original episodes, you and I were in consensus, like we don't like Trump, but just because the recent light of things, I think both of us are kind of like, who, like,
I mean, what
you know what I'm saying?
like what I want to make clear here is that like Trump could win. Like I don't really want him to win. I think that Hillary will be better, but if he does win, like my head isn't gonna get set on fire, and like unless he does something very very stupid, like I'll be the first person out like taking up arms against Trump if he like tries to become a dictator or something. Don't worry
Mm-hmm.
about that. But in all likelihood, like that is probably not going to happen. Like we're just going to have maybe some shitty Supreme Court justices, which does really suck.
Mm-hmm.
But we can get through it.
Yeah, I agree. And so this week on Funny Twitter, we're gonna go into like our kind of our main topic, and we're gonna talk about transgenderism. Correct, my boy?
Yeah, we're gonna talk about a little bit about transgenderism.
And so transgenderism kinda.
Well, okay, not so much about transgenderism. Like we're not gonna do like a scientific analysis of what transgenderism is. It's not even really directly a discussion about transgendered people, but more about some of the recent happenings in gender politics and how that's manifested itself specifically in relation to free speech.
Mm-hmm, exactly. So good job, Tom. Super genius. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna say a couple of tweets in regards to something that involves transgenderism. Is like the use of pronouns. And we'll explain a little bit more what pronouns are, but this is a couple tweets. Isaac Palumbo says, if you hate people who don't say your correct hashtag pronouns so much, then why is it so important to you that they respect you enough to use them? Good question, dude. Really good question.
Wait. Repeat that.
He says, if you hate people who don't say your correct pronouns so much,
Okay.
then why is it so important to you that they respect you enough to use them?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Dadbod says, my pronouns are Pharaoh, Pharaoh self, Ramses, and Anubis, and you may only refer to me as such from now on. So that's a little funny quip from my boy Dadbod. This guy says, like I know in a perfect world pronouns aren't inherently gendered, points at my agender ass, but it feels deliberate for Zenyatta. I don't know. So a little Overwatch joke from this guy.
So.
and then Sarah says, it annoys me so much when people cover a song and change their pronouns. Please don't do that. I get to.
Wait. What you mean? Like when somebody covers like a female song and like, but they're a male, so they change it to like. Okay.
Exactly. So yeah, it's a little interesting. Twitter on pronouns. Like I guess the consensus is some people don't like him, some people do like him. Some
Those
people
just
want
all
you to
sound
use
like
him.
jokes. Like that wasn't relevant. That wasn't, sorry, I also didn't think they were that funny, so that's why.
Yeah, I didn't think they were that funny. I think I prefer making fun of deplorables. Honestly, like I think I tried to make fun of some liberals this time, and I was like, it's not.
They
That
didn't even
funny.
seem that liberal. Anyway, so yeah, let me give a little background on something that happened recently. I sent you some stuff about this guy Jordan Peterson, a professor at University of Toronto. He's in the psychology department. I think I don't know exactly what his subjects that he teaches are, but I know he works a lot with like sort of like symbolism and things that are directly relevant to how we sort of communicate between each other. And he so there's a big hubbub around this man because he refuses to call transgendered people by their preferred pronouns. Now, I know what you're saying. He's a bigot. He should be fired. He should be hung up on he should be put into the what are those things that you put like your hands and your neck in, like you're like in the middle of the old
Gurney. Is it gurney? No, that's
no, it's like the
bed.
stock. It's like you know what I'm talking about. Everybody.
Stockades.
The stockades.
Yeah.
He needs to be put into the stockades. He needs to be whipped 80 times with the lashes. No, no, guys, no, that's bad. You're wrong because free speech. No, not just free speech. Actually, it's a little bit more complicated than that. The University of Toronto, or rather the Human Rights Commission of Ontario, I believe, has a bill in legislation. I believe it's called C-19. Hopefully, I'm not getting that wrong, but there's a bill in legislation that I think is up to be legislated, but hasn't been passed yet. That would make it a crime of some sort to not refer to people by their preferred pronouns. Now, it's not going to send you to prison for a year or whatever, but there would be a fine associated with it. It would be like hate speech almost. I don't know the details, but basically you would have to pay a fine. And so there have been protests on campus calling him a racist, people screaming shame at him. And basically his argument has been that it's one thing to legislate that you can't yell fire in a crowded theater because there's good reasons for that for public safety. It's another thing to say that you have to use certain words, right? And that's essentially what this legislation is moving in the direction of. It sounds like very nice, like, oh, you're saying to respect people, but respect should not be legislated, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I guess what my point would be from here would be liberalism. It used to be the concept associated with smaller government intervention on freedom of speech, a weariness or a untrustingness of government, and the to maintain ideals based on like the Constitution and things like that nature. And I think you and I are going to look more into this, but there was a shift that happened where now liberalism is associated with using the government to kind of get what you want under the guise of liberalism, which is like human rights and being empathetic to everyone around you, you know? So
Okay, to expand on that a little bit before you go into your example, there's a concept of classical liberalism which existed at one point, and now the modern day in the U.S., the way we use the word liberal is really to note somebody who is like a progressive, somebody who is trying to advance so-called gender rights, like identity politics, somebody who's concerned with a more egalitarian society, so to speak, although that's all arguable depending on your point of view.
Exactly. And so a good example would be liberals getting upset at Christian bakeries who don't want to bake homosexual cakes, I guess, or like
how does one bake a homosexual cake?
it's just like a cake with like rainbows on it and just like Milo Yiannopoulos plastered on top.
I would actually not mind having a cake with Milo Yiannopoulos' face on it. I feel like he's got a nice cake face. You know, like one of those cakes where you can get like a photo printed on the top.
Yeah.
Like I would take
Milo on it.
Big Milo face.
Dude, that would be the ultimate conflict for one of those bakeries is like Milo Yiannopoulos is a gay guy, but he's also a conservative. So like, what do they do? You know, like, do they bake the cake or not?
Anyways, what if it's for a straight wedding though?
Yeah, it would be a straight wedding. So anyways, and they like liberals will get mad at a Christian bakery who does this, but then at the same time, and they want to like make it illegal to deny. I mean, they want to make it illegal to deny anyone service, and like you're a personal private bakery and you have to make cakes for whoever comes into your store. Yet on the inverse, if they were go to like a Muslim bakery and ask them for such and they would deny them, there's not that outrage. And so there's a little bit of a double standard when it comes to liberalism. There's not like a consensus about it.
Okay, so to articulate this a little bit better, like there's a different expectation for somebody who's perceived to be like a
Westerner,
like a Western racist, like somebody who's being an oppressive white U.S. citizen compared to somebody who belongs to like a traditionally you don't hear a lot in the news about traditional sort of Muslim or some other religion based bigotry, right? That's not something that I don't hear that being talked about that much in liberal circles. It seems to be focused more on, like you said, like white Christian waspy people doing things like not wanting to bake cakes for gay couples.
And so what our original point was with freedom of speech is that in particular in this regard with this professor in Toronto that's trying to fight this law is that you and I understand the implications of make forcing someone to speak a certain way, you know? And one of the Western ideals, one of the main ideologies behind Western society, one of the main foundational points that our founding fathers imprinted on us was freedom of speech, you know? And as soon as you start giving way to less freedom of speech and trying to make laws against it, you're losing what granted you this right to have identity politics in the first place. And
Right.
so that's something that I struggle with when someone's like, "Hey, are you a liberal?" Because I don't want them to think I'm part of this regressive left that is smug and feels like they're hyper intelligent. They have the whole world behind them. And when you watch these videos, you see that like this. See like the video you sent me. I'm gonna link it in our summary of our YouTube page. Is like this level of smugness and like lack of dialogue and discussion. Like, nah, dog, like you're wrong. Like transgenderism have to be respected. They have to have their pronouns. You have to respect them or else, you know, and that's dangerous. That's really dangerous. And these people who are regarding themselves as like intellectuals, they're not, I feel like they're not fully thinking out their thought process, and they're just trapped in this echo chamber of all their other homies who, you know, who are also smug, and none of them are able to like step outside and see, you know what, like the implications of what I'm saying and what I'm trying to get done, legislation that I'm trying to get passed is kind of fucked up and contradictory to like the main, like the reason why I even can talk like this,
Like the
you know?
fundamentals of
Yeah.
Western society, like you said. So the thing is that, and this is what Peterson says, Professor Peterson, is communication and free speech is how we solve problems. Like if there's an issue going on, we depend on free speech to be able to articulate it and talk about it, and then come up with a solution, hopefully. And if we start saying like, well, you need to refer to people by a certain way, and if you don't, then we're going to fine you. Like it starts to become that. It just sets a dangerous precedent. Like that one thing, maybe in and of itself, isn't bad because I personally I don't care. Like if you tell me to refer to you, I'm not a college professor, but if you told me to refer to you by some type of pronoun, like I'll do my best to do it. Like I'm a
Hmm.
nice guy. I'm not an asshole, but the thing is that when you set that as an institutional precedent, it's very
Yeah.
dangerous.
Absolutely, man. And so that's all I'm saying. You know, I know that we want to avoid the science behind transgenderism and all that stuff, but
Well, I think we both. There's a million different viewpoints on this, but I think we
yeah.
both obviously accept that there are people who are transgendered and who that's a big struggle for them.
Hmm.
I certainly wouldn't deny that that's an experience that people have.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, and here I'm gonna go ahead and say this. I'm gonna put myself on the cross here, my man. But I think it's worth looking into, you know. And this guy, this scientist from John Hopkins, he he wanted to do a study, you know, about what it means to be transgender, and he based the whole study under the presumption that he saw that people who identified as such, like non-binary or like transgender or you know not defined by their gender, seem to have a lot of other mental issues
Right.
behind the transgenders. You know, like
Yeah.
they were depressed. There's a higher suicide rate even when they do complete the task that they initially want. Like if they're a woman and they want to like go to become a male, they still have high suicide rates. So this guy was like, you know what, I want to look into it just because there's going to be a whole generation of children who maybe are going to get imprinted by like their parents to be like, hey, you can be gendered, like being, you know, do like the gender, maybe like you, like your little boy is a little boy and you're like giving him a bunch of options and you're kind of like, I don't
Right.
know,
Right.
you
Right.
do you see
Right.
what I'm
Right.
saying? Like and I hate, I don't want to put myself on such a cross where I'm like, you're going to fuck up society. I would like research done about it in the sense of like there has to be a broader understanding of
Well, to
it.
be fair, I don't think that there was a lot of research done on okay, well, these are what male. This is a man, and this is a woman, and we're gonna build our whole society around the fact that this is what men do and this is what women do. That's
Yeah.
how we kind of got into the mess that we were in for the past 5,000 years or whatever. Is that
Mm-hmm.
we didn't have equality between genders in most societies, and we didn't. That there were these kind of relatively, especially to now, rigid roles between what men were supposed to do and think and what women were supposed to do and be, and so it's a very complex topic, right? And neither of us are gender experts, but I think that we can agree that, or at least this is my opinion. I won't say that we can agree. You can tell me if you agree,
Mm-hmm.
Rogelio.
Yeah.
Uh, I think that we're born right. We come out of a vagina, most of us. I guess
Most of us.
there's a couple of other possibilities. I think you could be like a test tube baby or something.
But you still come out of a vagina.
Is that? Oh yeah, you get
Oh, you
implanted.
could come out of a belly.
You're,
C-sections. And
so you're going to be coming out of a human being, and when you come out of the human being, most likely you're going to have either an XX pair of chromosomes or an X and a Y. And
Mhm.
there are some exceptions to this, and there are some weird things that can happen, right?
Mhm.
But in general, you're going to be from a biological sex point of view. And I saw somebody try to argue this recently and say that there's no biological basis for sex, and I don't know how you could be that wrong. Um,
Like
but
that's like the next level of wrongness. Like
that's
there's no.
just unless you want to do some crazy ass mental gymnastics. There's sexual dimorphism. Like, what do you think that means? Like, the men don't have breasts the same way women do. There's Exhibit A. Anyway, so that's all I'm talking about. You have a physical sex. There's no doubt about it. And
Mhm.
with that physical sex, there is a strong correlation for some physical traits, right? Like, I think men
Mhm.
have denser bones. Probably men have certain wiring in their brain that is a little bit different. Women have certain, there's definitely changes in general
Mhm.
that exist, differences that exist between the sexes. I think that would be pretty tough to dispute.
Mhm.
Um, what I don't think that you can take for granted, though, is all of the male attributes that you usually associate with men, and all of the feminine attributes that you usually associate with women. A lot of those, I think, are magnified and built up by society, um, telling them or imposing them upon people. And they're not all bad necessarily. They work out well for a lot of people. Like maybe I think they've worked out pretty well for you. I think they've worked out pretty well for me. I identify as a male, and I'm like pretty cool with it. Like, it's not really a problem.
Oh, so you're
Um,
cisgendered.
I'm cisgendered, yes,
Yeah.
and but so I can. But the thing is, what I was getting at is that I think there's a lot of room for fluidity, and I think that in the future society, 100, 200, 300, 1,000 years from now, if we keep advancing at a rate that we have socially as we have in the past 100, 150 years, I think that we will see a much more gender fluid society. But what this doesn't mean is that you get to just invent 1 million labels for what you could possibly be and 1 million new words for what you want to be called
And
and expect
impose those words on us.
put those words in other people's mouth and
Mhm.
call them bigots and ists of some sort because they don't want to spit those words back out at you, especially when a lot of this gender politics stuff is relatively new.
Yeah, exactly. And recently we were having a discussion about this, and I think you made this point, and I thought it was such an excellent point. And you said that because of those strict, or I don't know, anyway, someone made this point. Because of these strict gender roles that we have grown accustomed to, like boys have to play soccer and play sports, and females have to do this, the transgenderism is almost like a reaction to this, you know?
Right.
And maybe like identify as whatever anybody wants, you know, but maybe as the gender roles kind of dissipate and we are able to discuss more openly, like, you know what, I'm a dude, but I like to sew, I like to crochet shit, you know, like, and things
Yeah.
like that, in that nature. Maybe it turns out, you know, like everyone's a lot happier, and it's good to be non-binary, and like it's not a big deal anymore, you know, like boys and girls, they can intermix. And I remember as a child, like, it's like a 12-year-old boy, I was with my female cousins upstairs, you know, like hanging out with my female cousins, and I didn't even have any idea or clue about any of this stuff. I was just like, I'm with my female cousins. My parents never imposed anything like, hey, as a boy, you have to do this or that or the other. Like, it was just understood, like, hey, you're a dude. Like, you're a dude. And my uncle came upstairs and he said, the boys with the boys and the girls with the girls. And he grabbed me and he put me in another room with the boys. And I was like, but yo, I was having fun. And so, like, from there, it stuck with me. Like, there is these strict gender rules and these like laws that we're bound to, that I'm sure my uncle doesn't even know why he would say that, like what the implications of that. But like now it's like, you know what, it shouldn't be like that. Like if I'm a little boy at 12 years old, I shouldn't be placed in that position where my uncle projects his own fears about boys and girls intermingling onto me, you know. And so yeah, it's definitely great to be like non-binary. It's a good, it's a public, it's a societal good. But I just wonder, are we doing transgenders a good by not looking further into what causes that, you
Right,
know?
right, right, right. So I would say that this is a problem that we touched on before, and it's that just because you feel like you are not all the way on the male side of the spectrum doesn't mean that you are a transgender. And just
Mm-hmm.
because you are not all the way on the female side, but you have a vagina, doesn't mean that you're transgendered. Or at least the common sort of medical way of talking about it, it doesn't mean that you're transgendered. There are actual mental conditions. I won't say illnesses because that word has a lot of baggage, but there's mental conditions where you have like gender dysphoria or whatnot, and you can be medically diagnosed and you can go through medical procedures. And a lot of these people that are calling themselves non-binary, genderqueer, 100 other labels, that's great if you feel like that expresses who you are in some way, but you are not necessarily the classical definition of what a transgendered person is. And maybe more people that are transgender are coming out now and able to be open about it, and maybe that's helping them, and that's great and all. But I think that a lot of people are just trying to, maybe it's not all bad, but they're taking these labels and they're almost wearing them too much like a badge rather than
Mm-hmm.
just, because what this really all should mean, right, is that you can just express yourself how you want, wear what you want, think what you want, be what you want, do whatever you want. Like, these are the goals, right? It's not
Mm-hmm.
about all of these labels and about oh, you need to like call me this, and you know what I mean? Like, it's
Yeah.
about being able to do what you want as a human being, and it's not about forcing other people to accommodate you.
Right. Exactly. Absolutely. And yeah, and I think that liberals, the left, has to remember the principles and the ideals that has afforded us the opportunity to even speak or talk or act like this. And it's a good thing, you know. It's a good thing for there to be racists, and not because they're racist it's good. I'm saying it's a good thing that there's diversity of opinions and everyone can have their own opinions. And then eventually, throughout just like societal repercussions of being a racist, racists are gonna die off. You sitting in front of a racist and yelling at his face and calling him a racist and a pig and all these things without even giving him a second to explain himself as a human being or where he got these ideas from, you're doing yourself a disservice and the world a disservice, and you need to stop. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're gonna put a stamp on you right now. Like, stop doing that, liberals.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, the best. I joined a group called the Alt Left, and you know what? Like, maybe that's the new group, like the alternative left, where like we remember our liberal ideas and we're progressives at the same time. So
Yeah, yeah.
think about that,
I'm
cause.
all about anything that gives people more freedom to be who they are and do what they want to do. The
Mhm.
issue, though, and if you can present a compelling argument for, because this is the counter argument that will be presented to me, is that transgendered people are getting killed, transgendered people are undergoing this, that, and the other sort of discrimination, and that needs to stop. Like, whatever we need to do to stop discrimination, that should happen. But I don't know that not having your professor not get a fine because he doesn't learn the gender pronouns for every person in his class at the beginning of the semester. I don't
Mhm.
know that that is a salient solution to the issue. And what happens is if we create this culture of trying to outlaw points of view essentially and legislate more safe space type uh, environments, then the university and our country and our world becomes a place where that is the solution to our problems instead of just presenting ideas and letting them battle it out. So you see this a lot with like Milo Yiannopoulos. I was just like, I don't agree with him. I always have to say that I don't agree with Milo Yiannopoulos with everything that he does, but
Yeah.
as a proponent of free speech, him going onto campuses and him articulating his points of view, even if they're sometimes ridiculous or satirical or offensive, it is embarrassing to me as somebody who I consider a liberal for people to go and interrupt his speeches and his
Or
performances,
call him like scum,
call
or
him racist,
ban
call him
hate speech.
sexist, call him whatever you want. Go and interrupt and just and take away his platform. I just I don't, because really what you're doing is you're taking away not just his platform, but you're also blocking out all the people who came there to listen to him and to that was their moment. That was, in a way, that was their safe space, right?
Yeah. So you came into their safe space.
You came into their safe space.
Yeah. So
They made it unsafe.
So yeah, I guess that's a great way to wrap up the show. I guess don't make other people's safe space unsafe just because your safe space is safe. Or how about this? Respect everyone's safe space, okay? Respect everyone's dialogue. Respect the very ideas of liberalism. We're always talking about historical context of things. Respect the historical context of liberalism. Become a better dude. And Tom, tell them about like recent happenings in No Offense history or whatever. Hit them with some stuff.
Okay, so yeah, we're hopefully gonna have a RSS feed up by tonight because I'm gonna work on that immediately after. So basically, all of our stuff should be on iTunes and Pocket Casts and everything. But to expand on what you said, I think that the world should be a safe space for ideas.
Damn.
You know what I'm saying?
I feel
me
you.
on that? So, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Please hit us with some comments or some input, some questions, what you'd like to see from the show. Just give us, we love having feedback, and we're going to keep doing this for you every week. So let us know what you think about the No Offense podcast. It has been Thomas Grice and Rogelio Tepete, and we will see you next week.
Peace.